Hey, welcome back to another exciting episode of the MWOD. Today we're taking a listener request from one of our athletes who works with some rugby players, and she's like, hey, can you talk about impingement? Absolutely. So we're gonna kind of not cover the whole impingement piece, but I'm gonna give you one example. One of the things that we need to do with impingement is to try to get the shoulder to the back of the socket. By kind of mobilizing towards the back of the socket in flexion, I improve how the joint kind of articulates kind of the passive accessory motion of the joint. So if I can get that shoulder to the back of the socket, ironically that's where I bench press, that's where my most wound up supported shelf is, then I also improve the mechanic moving up overhead. So remember, I have this range. I'm not saying you need to be back here for doing everything, but kind of mobilizing to the back of the socket makes a difference. So here's your homework number one. You're working on impingement. We need to be able to get the shoulders to the back of the ground, and you'll notice that I can get my head of my shoulder pinned to the back of the ground. In fact, the ground is kind of supported by the shoulders being supported by the ground. A lot of people, if you do this test, you'll find that your shoulder is easily off the ground, which means the back of your capsule is tight. One of the things that we see people all the time doing is pulling their arm across their body, trying to stretch, and that's just an impingement stretch. You might as well do the Hawkins-Kennedy impingement stretch. What we really mean to do is mobilize the shoulder to the back of the socket. One simple way is to kind of find that place where I feel a little bit impinged in the front, and then I can actually just push through my arm straight into the back. What I'm trying to do is literally load the back of the socket, and you'll find that angle that kind of feels like a stretch, and I'm just going to push straight through my arm into the ground. And no big deal here, just try to kind of oscillate back and forth. A lot of the Egoscue movement stuff is literally just hanging out with arms straight. I think this came out of Rolf's practice, where literally you just hang and let the arm sag into the back of the socket over 10 or 15 minutes. That's too slow for me. This is an easy, I just push into resistance, no big deal. Your spine shouldn't jump out of your throat. The other thing I can do is I can take a big heavy weight and do the same thing. I don't need to be active, but I can just be passive and let the shoulder kind of approximate to the back of the socket. And as I sit here for just 1, 2, 3, 4 minutes, holding, the weight's going to drive in. I'm going to get this kind of passive creep in the back of the socket here. And as you retest this, you will see that this arm is much, much further in the back of the socket. Dave Tate will talk about unloading the bar and pausing for 1, 2 seconds for beginners, because that allows that shoulder to set in the back of the socket more effectively. And so you should be able to not get your hand underneath the back of there. Okay, so that's that kind of impingement test. My wife is laughing at me for some reason. By the way, this is the 1-month anniversary of the MWOD, and it's ironically our 7-year anniversary. So happy anniversary to J-Star, and happy anniversary to MWOD. Those are equivalently the same things. To celebrate let me show you one more tweak. One of the things that you can do is you can get a little bit of distraction in. So the setup on this is a little bit tricky, but it's just like the hip. If we think about the shoulder as like a hip, it's the same business. I just get a little distraction in that lateral part of that capsule, and then let that sag through. And so that can just unimpinge me a little bit laterally. It's just like the hip. You'll find that it's a little bit strange, but if you can just get a little bit of lateral slack in there, that'll work. All right, because it is the 1-month anniversary, it's time for you to squat again for 10 minutes. This is like the 5K run on CrossFit.com. You don't want to see it come up. Don't miss out. Grab someone and see that test. Andy Petranek, CrossFit LA, filmed his attempt. His first one was so bad that when he started filming, I was like, oh no, Andy, you're not squatting all the way down. Squat all the way down, and turns out he was just really stiff. A lot of you guys complained of burning in the shins. That's because you're pulling yourself forward, trying to keep that angle closed. There's been a lot of talk about feet angle. We like feet angle straight. We'll continue to write and talk more about that. So do the best you can. With the foot out, you see how that knee comes into that valgus knee position? I can try to keep my legs out in here, but it's just not a very strong position. I want to be straight forward, push the knee out. Go back to Beijing Olympics, watch the 105 guys pull from the ground. They pull out, fully external rotate with feet straight. So we're going to approximate those positions, and then let's camp out here for 10 minutes. How long does it take? I would recommend doing this not before you exercise, but tomorrow is Michael on the CrossFit.com main site, running, back extensions, glute ham sit-ups. You're going to be overextended. This is a nice way to kind of restore some of that kind of low back hip flexion stuff, get a little gapping motion in there, all right? We'll see you guys tomorrow.